Hey, Black mothers and others. Thank you for joining me for the Free Black Motherhood podcast. Free Black Motherhood is a social movement that wants to accompany Black mothers in their journey to owning their agency. We do this by offering educational spaces, tools, and most importantly, community. Here in the space of Free Black Motherhood, we have a vision for the world. That vision is that Black mothers have the resources and tools to remain present and grounded within ourselves, despite the complexities of raising children in today's world. We also believe that we deserve the same freedom and healing that we want for our children. This space is ran by me, Meadows-Fernandez, a speaker, writer, facilitator, and community organizer, and of course, a mother of 2 kids. I can't wait to see the conversations and exchanges we'll have. Without further ado, let's get into it. Hi, Stephanie. I'm so excited to chat with you today.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited for wherever our conversation takes us. I love talking to you, and I love what comes out of what we yap about.
It's so mutual. So something a lot of folks, well, no one other than us actually would know, is we have talked about, like, from our relationship's inception, we have talked about finding ways to like capture the awesome chats we have and being able to like share them. We remember we were like, oh, well, maybe it could be like voice notes put together and just all of these other things. And so this feels like a little piece of that is coming true, and that's really exciting.
I'm excited. Yeah, we've tried a lot of different things, and then we will have a great conversation, and it'll like evaporate from my ethers. I want to do better about that because I feel like, how do I archive like even the evolution of the idea? Because like I might come to you really excited about something, and then you're like, "What about this?" And then it changes, and then by the time I talk to you, it's had like 4 different iterations. I would love to see how that shows up for you as you think about how FBM is evolving too, like where you were and where you are, where you're going. Archive.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And like one of the examples that comes to mind, like before we dive in, that can just really set the tone for our relationship. Because if you can't tell from how we're starting, like we're friends, so it's a little less formal the way the conversation goes. That can't tell is obviously to everybody else, not to you, Stephanie. But what was I getting ready to say? So like one of the things that kind of like came from our conversations that I have found myself like there's 2 things that I found myself using in the world all the time. Okay. So one of them that I got from you, I can't remember your exact phrasing. No, it's say the thing.
Make the
Is that
make the implicit explicit.
Yes. So I remember you always tell me to say the thing, and so then I'll talk to people and I'll say exactly that. Make the implicit explicit. I'll be like, my friend Stephanie always
They're
says
like,
that.
who is
As
Stephanie?
long as
They're like, who is that?
no, they don't. They'll be like, well, I know there's only like 4 people you ever quote. So, because if I'm quoting somebody, they're special to me. And so like your make the implicit explicit has made like there's just been so many conversations it seeped into. And then the more recent one that you and I just kind of dialogue together, and I'm going to butcher this, so help me. It's something like, it may be true in practice, but it's not true in reality.
Yeah, like in theory, but not reality. Yeah, that's basically like on paper, but not for real. Like, yeah.
Correct. And so I bring that up to people a lot now too. It's like, okay, this might be how we do things, that we only have one option to move through the world. But actually, you can do a whole lot of shit if you want to,
Right.
The flexibility is there. And I feel like those quotes are just really snapshots and insight into how you move through the world. And so what I'd really like us to start with as we like really dive in is just sharing with folks, like, we know you are, I got to listen to an episode of the podcast and you use the term like a dabber or a slasher. I think that sounds like I'm talking about a murder thing, but it sounds like it's like, like horror stuff. I'll use the term multi-hyphenate to be clear. Someone who's lived lots of lives, and I want to hear, like, at this stage in your life, how do you want people to know you, and what are you trying to give to the world?
Okay, you just gonna like dive right in. You're like, oh, I'm just gonna. Okay.
I'm sorry.
You know, Jesus, I would say what encompasses all of them, which you know because you've listened to the podcast, is that I am a living ancestor and that I have many gifts, many talents that get funneled into what society calls this. So when I was a lawyer, that's the box I was playing in. When I was a matchmaker, that's the box I was playing in. There's a box that says if you are good with this and you help people with this and you do this and you like this and you are this, then you're this. Sure, like I love humans and I love solving humans' problems. And so that looks different ways throughout the years. What am I trying to give to the world? I really believe that if we all thought of ourselves as living ancestors, this world will be fundamentally different because it's not just being present to what boxes I live in terms of roles right now, but it's the way that I embody them that changes things backwards and forwards. So as a living ancestor, how I am as a matchmaker, as a parent, as a recovering lawyer, as a facilitator, as a healer, as a baby herbalist, as a wannabe DJ, it's doing something for my timeline, the people who have come before me and the folks who will come after. And so that's in a nutshell, since we don't do surface level. You see my hand, we don't do that. We just be dropping in. That's
I know.
that's what I would like to be known as, a living ancestor. That's what I would want to offer to the world.
So, of course, I love that answer, both in how it speaks to, like, the part that really sticks out to me is how you say, we call it this, but it's just you expressing your gifts in a particular way, And it makes me think about how there are all of these labels that we put on life and generally to be legible to the external world. And those labels create like a sense of distance.
Yep.
But what I hear you saying is there's actually no distance in those things that you're offering the world. They're just more socially constructed.
Right. And you know this, part of the multi-hyphenate, the living ancestor, part of what brings us angst and suffering is agonizing over how to make it legible to other people. So like, how do I explain why it makes sense in my brain, body, spirit to be a matchmaker and a facilitator and like, I struggle with that on the outside, but it's like aligned on the inside. It's integrated. It's all the same. And so I think the podcast was one step to try to like have more conversations and normalize that more, because I think lots of us are trying to fit ourselves into the box or the category. And it creates distance both externally, because I'm like further away from the thing that I'm actually doing, but there's some distance internally too, where I'm like, why am I explaining this? Or like the connection is clear, but we're trying to explain it because we want to be understood. We want to find our people.
Yeah.
We want people to join and we want to be in community around it. So that's still I feel like that's still like an ongoing tension, is like how much time to invest in the legibility of it. And I feel like people who know, like, I don't want to, it's like, what is it? If you know, you know, but like,
Yeah.
I want everybody to know, like,
Yeah.
because it shifts things. It really changes things. So still working on that and like trying to figure out how much time to invest. But that is an ongoing struggle.
So you know me. Look, you and everybody else, I need some grace as I bounce around. There's so many possibilities. I'm gonna just be that bouncy
Go
ball.
for it.
Have the kids got to the stage that they get bouncy balls and they'll just be like bouncing around the house, or do y'all have like a no bouncy ball? Because I would prefer no bouncy balls in my house.
I would prefer that. The thing is, we're at the stage where they get it, but they'll lose it right away. I'm like, you know what? Great. The attention span is about this long. So they'll get something. These stupid goodie bags that you get at every single party that are full of plastic crap that end up in the trash. So they'll get something. They'll play with it a couple hours. They'll lose it. It goes under the couch. It's magically gone. And AKA I put it in the trash. So if you're hearing this in the future, children, that's where it went.
Look, that's a part of the ancestry work too, getting all these bouncy balls out of the house. But so that's I'm gonna be the metaphorical bouncy ball, but I feel like that, just like you said, what's understood doesn't have to be explained. To know me is to know I'm always a bouncy ball. So I don't even that legibility piece. Look at it coming up right now of me trying to
Right.
describe something that anyone who interacts with me in a short amount of time already knows. So all of that aside, um, one of the things, so here's something that's like coming up surface for me, okay? So in 2020, you did a TEDx talk and it was lovely. And I enjoyed it so much. And you had your little baby locks and was looking cute and all of that kind of stuff. And what I was thinking about as I watched it, and in that TED talk, I'm going to link to it, you were basically introducing us to pieces of that origin story of Living Ancestor, which I want you to go into for this audience in a moment. But before we get into that, I want to know, because what I saw when I looked at it wasn't just like your locks being at a different stage, but it reminded me that you were at a different stage. Rhythm wasn't even born yet, right?
I was pregnant. Rhythm attended the TEDx. So before she's even born in the Earth side, she went to a TEDx. She was at the TEDx. I was pregnant. I was in Atlanta. My locks were also newly birthed. And the TEDx experience, that's a whole other, that's a different podcast. So we can get to that
Okay.
too.
Write it down so we don't forget.
But what was your question?
Write it down. So the initial question you answered was one, grounding in whether or not you were a mother yet. And then two, I'm just sitting here thinking about like the how has motherhood reshaped the way you have contextualized this journey altogether. But now I'm wondering if we need to start by telling people what Living Ancestor is, some of that origin story, and then going there.
Okay.
Just again for legibility.
Yeah, let's go. I'm gonna bounce too, right? So first, let me come back to the TEDx, which if there was ever a metaphor for motherhood and parenthood, like it probably was that. The TEDx that is live, and it's not like no shame about it now, but there was a lot of shame back then. The TEDx that is live online, that is my practice TEDx. That's actually not the TEDx speech that I gave on the day of the event. Because of technical difficulty, we all recorded a week earlier in
Mm-hmm.
case there were technical difficulties. So the final version, only people who are live saw. And part of it was cut off. So the speech changed in a week. The speech, like things, I shifted things that are not in there that obviously I feel more comfortable with now. And then, yeah, we could talk about the rest of the stuff later. So let's start with that. It's not even the final thing. Hold that. Coming
Okay.
back to the origin story, I bounced around living in the United States and I landed in Portland, Oregon, which is the whitest place in the United States.
No, this is the whitest place in the United States.
Whitest major city. Sorry, whitest major city.
Okay.
Let me get the record straight. And was founded as a racist white utopia, right? Because Southern white folks were going out west further than Wyoming and saying, I want to live here without Black folks and other folks of color. So in this city, to gather as a group of Black people, a visible crowd of Black people is a thing. Like it's a spectacle. And one of these spectacles was it was like a Black lady luncheon where we all got together. It was a big celebration, vendors, food, and literally like the best hug. You know, Black folk give the best and like the real hug. It makes you feel like they hugging your soul. So I got all these good,
I don't even like hugs, and it makes me happy.
so happy, good food, good people, good time. And at one point in the program, elders were being introduced and honored. So they got these like basically like lifetime awards, and each
Hmm.
had time on the mic to share whatever they wanted to share. And a lot of what I heard was really impactful. I remember sitting in my seat being like, damn, like elders be knowing some stuff sometimes, as we know. Uh, and there was one person in particular, and again, like it's like I'm like back to the moment. I can close my eyes and remember I had like just gotten another serving of food, so I could have missed it. I could have missed it. And I sat down, and she was like, "In this phase of my life, I'm focused on planting a seed for a tree under whose shade I know I will not sit." I was like, oh. And the visual is what is the visual that I use for the podcast. There's like a little girl sitting under a tree, and some of the artwork is what I use for the Take Nothing When I Die podcast. But for many reasons, it brought together some things that have been churning and percolating up until that point. Like, oh, yes, this conversation about legacy, um, even in the powerful share that she brought forth, I was like, but today I'm actually creating legacy. Like, it's not like I have to wait till I become an elder or wait till a someday. What I do today matters. What I do and don't do, who I am and who I'm not, how I be and how I don't be. That actually creates legacy, not when you die, but how you live. That's legacy. So then, things start to swirl. We got the Portland elder. I got someone sent me this quote about the graveyard being the richest place on the planet. I was like, oh yeah, because people are taking shit with them, and not
Yep.
like, and yes, we're talking about legacy, but we're also talking about inheritance. And so that's kind of
Hmm.
how the conversation has evolved. And then I'm a big Alexis Pauline Gumbs fan, and she talks about being a prophet in the present tense. And I was like, oh yeah. So there's something about being here that's also doing something in multiple directions. And things started to come together, and all the things. But I think over time this body of work has expanded as it's reached more people. And I've done workshops, and I've done events, and I've talked more about it. And these days, what people seem to hold on to really tightly is inheritance. So a living ancestor is someone who is conscious to their legacy and to their inheritances, both what came before them and what they will leave. And not just money, like not your great auntie Mabel who left you this, and a house and a pair of shoes. We're talking about medicine and gifts and trauma and joy and wounds, and that is passed on. But so is the healing that we do in this lifetime. So is the way that we carry on the work of our ancestors. So is the way we atone for what has happened or make reparations for what has happened. And that matters for who comes after. So I'll pause there. I feel like I said a lot. I'm bouncing. I'm doing there's a computer, like a computer. See, old lady here. It was a computer game, and it also is a phone game. Bricks, where you have like
Of course.
and you bounce it.
Yes, that's the only thing I could play on my dad's BlackBerry.
Old folks. Yeah.
Mhm.
I'm a pause.
So, first, as the professional bounce arounder, I will say that you were very clear to me. Now, take that with a grain of salt because I understand, But also, I really am just sitting with what you said because I can vaguely remember the first time that you shared the quote with me around, planting the seed for a tree whose shade you won't sit under. I remember that. And I remember being like,
Yep.
and like every time, like it doesn't get old. Every time it's like, because there's so many levels. Like there's the level of the labor and the effort of the individual. There's the level of like understanding that you don't exist
Yep.
forever. When people spend so
Yep.
much time, like when I don't know what I was looking at, but like almost someone basically said like almost everything we do as humans is trying to fight the destiny of death.
Yep.
Like almost
Yep.
everything, you know? And for someone to be like that grounded and aware that like not only is it going to happen, but one day someone is going to sit with these artifacts that we left behind, and either it's going to be a tool to keep moving
Yep.
or it's going to be, you know, a barrier. Like that's kind of what it comes down to, is are you helping them go forward, or are you keeping them stuck where they are? And that just always really sits with me every time. The impermanence of us all.
Yep.
And then of course you also have that piece you said around like elders. There's someone named Jessica. She is the founder of Purple Couch Therapy. I think that's how you say it. And we're going to be talking, we're going to chat eventually. And you know how you were saying something about like, you know, elders be knowing stuff. And like I interviewed her for a piece. I can't even remember what it was about, but it was in the bump. And so what she kind of talked to me about in that piece was the difference between the aged and the elder.
Mm.
And like
Mm-hmm.
some people are just aging, you know, and other people actually have worked towards and solidified their title as
Sure.
elders. And I remember being like, I've been missing this in my life, girl. I needed this, you know, because as you said, like there's some folks who it's like, wow, you have moved through the world and you have absorbed and become a gift to the rest of us. And others of y'all are a stumbling block. And like just calling it what it is. And so when I think about the conversations that you have in the work that you're offering with this idea of the living ancestor, I just really hear us moving and living intentionally around not being that stumbling block,
Yeah.
like not being the one that when we look back down the tree, it's like, and what kind of shit were they on?
Yeah.
Like, why you out here like this?
Yeah, you know, two things on that. One, coming back to the tree, and this is one evolution of how I've been thinking about it. Another layer to the tree and the seed planting is that the tree is there to give shade if someone wants it. And I think that's another piece about legacy where we're like, we're building this and you better use it. I'm gonna put money aside for college so you can go to college. And here's my idea. Like, it's like, there's something about also releasing how the legacy is used that feels also really important
Mm,
because it can provide shade if you want it to. And if you want to go out be in the sun, if you want to go sit under another tree, go for it. So there's choice.
mm,
And I think that leads me to the second point about folks aging or getting older, but they not elders, is I think a key component of the living ancestor framework, which you also preach about, is like, how do we accept those folks too? Because that's a part of us as well. None of us live in
yeah.
pure timelines. We all have people in our timelines, blood or not, who have wreaked havoc on folks in their lives, who have caused pain, trauma, harm, conflict, all the things. The extent to which we can accept that them is the extent to which we can accept the fullness of ourselves. Because that's us too. Because that's actually my inheritance too. And so I think that's a key part of like, how do we hold those inheritances? And sometimes it is repair. Like, damn, my daddy did XYZ, or damn, my great great grandma was blah, blah, blah. The exercise of living ancestor is not to valorize or to villainize those folks. It is acceptance to say, that's
Mm,
me too. And if I can accept them, I can accept the fullness of me, messy human, imperfect. That guy, I'm a pain in the ass. I'm a villain in a lot of people's story. I'm a hero. Like, actually, I'm just a human. I just be out here
mm.
humaning. I'm trying to do my best. But I think that feels important too, of like, what do we do with those folks? Now, I might not call on my unwell ancestors to help me, right? Like the stumbling block, I'm going to say, you're me too. And also I'm going to release you to do your work. But I'm going to call on
Mm.
my well and well-intentioned ancestors to support the work that I want to do in this lifetime.
I'm speechless because there's so much there's so much power. Like, we need a 10-year long podcast. That's it. Like, this conversation can never end. The kids are going to go and grow up, and we're still going to be,
Still
we're going to still
interviewing.
be here.
Don't come in the door.
Yes,
The door's still closed.
forever through the apocalypse,
Good
because
luck with dinner. Like,
oh,
yeah.
oh my goodness, like oh, I have so many things. Like, one of the pieces that's really sticking out to me about what you said is I really love that, not to valorize or villainize. First off, because I love a good alliteration. There's
I
that.
like that one. I
Second,
like that one.
second, because again, like, my best friend Keenan and I, we talk about this all the time, that like these things, like for example, like the Black excellence movement and all this other kind of stuff, like, I am excellent. It's who I am. And also, if I have to always exist in a standard of excellence, that's not any better than people expecting me to exist and be less than
Right,
every time.
right, right,
I still
right,
don't get to feel the diversity and the depth
right,
of
right.
humanity, like, which is a fluctuation of somewhere. What do I tell people all the time? I think it's something like, I'm trying to see if I can remember the numbers. It's like 15% of people are like awful, the worst awful you've ever encountered. 15% of people are amazing, the most amazing you ever encountered. And 70% of us are just meh. Like,
Mediocre.
some days we're pretty cool, some days we suck. It just kind of depends on the day. And when I hear you talk about, understanding who we are, I think about what you said in your TED talk, this idea of remembering in the literal sense. And I want you to introduce folks to that.
Yeah. So, as I was fleshing out the definition, I'm like, okay, it's someone, living ancestor is someone who's conscious to their legacy, their inheritances. They know that what they do in the present can both change what's happened in the past and also shift what happens in the future. And there are two sacred duties of a living ancestor. The first is to remember our past. And I put member, literally, for us to put ourselves back together based on who and what has come before us, right? So I think about what it looks like to accept the folks in your timeline, both, again, blood and otherwise. For some of us, we have literary ancestors, we have parental ancestors, we have identity ancestors. There are folks who are in my lineage that I'm not related to by blood, but who I am is composed of who they were and what they did or did not do. And that is part of how we alchemize what has come before us. Because some of it, like I said, it is atoning for or making reparations for. Some of it is carrying on really great work. But we have to like find our people, gather our people, accept our people, and then we can actually do something with their legacy and those inheritances. If we running from it or pretending it's not there, we won't find it. In the workshop, someone always, 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 always will bring up a question about folks who don't know their people. Like, what if I don't know my ancestors? For lots of reasons. Excuse me, colonization and separation, shame and silence. Some of us, our families, we don't communicate. We don't be talking about nothing. We don't tell stories of certain people. We omit whole storylines and other families and all this stuff, right? There are lots of reasons why folks might not be connected to their ancestors. And somebody, one of my workshops, again, like, this is a body of work that's co-created. Somebody was like, well, even if you don't know your ancestors know you. So it's like, I could just turn this off right now. Like, we're done. We're actually finished here. And it's true that there are people who claim you, who know you. You have to find them and figure out what you are made of. And the story I shared on the TEDx, which again, I didn't know all of the story, know a lot more of the story now, but like, my parents, what they did or did not do growing up, who they are, what they struggled with, what they got excited about, what brings them joy, their desires, the deepest fears, that's a part of me. And so being with that space, there's so much for me to learn or to understand or to like challenge. And it's not, I can't change everything. I don't think that's an intention. But, I think about my parents going through the exact same things I be going through, the exact same. And lastly, I don't know if I can't remember if this is on the final version, so correct me if I'm wrong, because you probably more recently watched it than I did. But there was
True.
some wild statistic that like every female child is born with all of the eggs that they'll ever have in their lifetime. And so
So that was not in
that
that
was
version, and yes, I've heard
okay.
that.
Okay. So, and it is what it is. Once I learned that, I was like, oh, okay. So when my grandmother was born, she had all the eggs she would ever have in her lifetime, which included my mom. When my mom was born, she had all the eggs that she would have in her life, which was me. So to study, to accept, to know about what has happened to my grandmother and to my mom, and again, from me to my kids, that's important because the traumas, again, the joy, the healing, the pain, all the things that those left imprints that are literally me. So how we remember, how we put ourselves together from our past is really important.
See, and you speak in my language because when we get into that conversation around like 3 generations of us being in everyone's eggs, we get into that my thing about lineage being passed down through the maternal line. I mean,
Right,
excuse me, liberation being passed down through the
right,
maternal line, and of course, we know there are many more pieces to
sure,
us than our mothers. Our matrilineal DNA, and also nobody else is grounded in us like that.
right, right.
That is unique, to those of us who like we come down and we come down. And it, again, like you said, it just really sits with me that we are picking up the torch or the baton from the relay of what the women before us left behind.
Yes, yes,
That's how we decide where our work is.
yes.
And it sounds, and I think to a lot of people it sounds really like, it can sound woo. I can't think of another way to describe it. Like it can just sound like, oh, that's a cute concept. It's like, no, baby girl, this is literal. Like we were born in the
Science,
environment that they gave birth to us in. Like
science.
this this isn't a feeling or a theory. This is real applied life that we start where our mothers
Yeah,
stopped to birth us,
yes, yeah,
and the journey that they go on from there. And like one of the things that I remember you mentioning, again, I'm more recent than you, so I'm gonna be pulling up stuff, is you use this expression that fits so well with not only what I dream of for the world, but it's also in alignment with free Black motherhood. Is this idea of you want folks to feel free, whole, and enough. And talk to me about this free, this whole, this enough, and how that plays a role in you as a mother. Not only you as someone who is like mothering society by offering wisdom, but also someone who's literally mothering.
yeah. That phrase came from some affirmations work that I did a very long time ago. And for those of you who have been in therapy, like your therapist will be like, uh-huh, girl, uh-huh, yep, yep, uh-huh. And then like 3 months later, you'll be like, oh my God, da, 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 da. And I was like, I literally was in therapy like, why didn't you tell me this, Alice? Alice was like, you gotta come to it on your own. And I think for a very long time, I think traditional societal cultural norms around transformation really stress external and being somebody else. Like you have to go get a program, you got to get a coach, you have to like do something with somebody else so you can be different from who you are. And I had two really big revelations in therapy. Um one was around I don't know what to call the shift, but I went from like trying to see myself as others see me to, and this is the one where I was like, Alice, why didn't you tell me that? I was like, I'm going to work on it. I'm going to work on seeing myself as other people see me. And she's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. 3 weeks later, I come back and I'm like, oh, I need to figure out how I see me. It doesn't matter how other people see me. And she was like, uh-huh. So that felt like a profound shift. And the other shift that came with that was like, it's not that I have to be a different person. I want to come back to who I know myself to be. What I need is a reminder of that. And me at my best, me when I feel integrated, me when I feel aligned is like to really sit in my wholeness and the agency and power that I have, which is my freedom, and that my enoughness. That was a lot of my self-worth, and just self-trust work was coming up. And I was like, oh, if I can continue to remind myself of the wholeness that's already there, the freedom that is already mine, and the enoughness that I like, my divine right to exist, take up space, and be enough, I can really shift some shit. Like, oh, this feels powerful. And how that shows up in my parenting, it was one of the first affirmations I taught my oldest, who's now almost 5. She got a whole set, she got her own. But I was just like, what's the thing I struggle with the most? Trying to remember my power, that I'm free, that I'm whole, that I already have all the things I need, that I am enough. And I didn't want that to have to be a chorus for her later. I was like, well, we could start again. She's created her own, her own person, but it was just a starting point. And it's always a reminder to me, which is part of FBM, is the way that we parent ourselves, the self-awareness that we need to work on, the way that we pour and invest into our health, wholeness, well-being, enoughness has ripple effects. Our children are experiencing our wholeness, our enoughness, our freedom, so that they can do it too. I'm not going to lecture my way to that. They're actually going to say, oh, this is what a whole human feels like. This is what individual liberation and freedom looks like. Oh, this is okay. Even if I mess up or I make a mistake or a blah, 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 this is what it looks like. This is what it feels like to be enough. And that has been part of my parenting, as whenever I find myself external, this child needs to, I'm like, oh, Stephanie needs to actually. What part of myself needs to be reminded about my freedom, my wholeness, and my enoughness, so that they can experience something different from me in this moment?
Yes to all of that. And yes, yes, yes. I remember when the littles were small. I think it was Salem. So Salem's 3 years older than Sage. So it started with him, but Sage's entire life, no matter what he has done, she has tried to up it. So
That's about right.
that's just the flow. So I went to an event in Oakland called Mountaintop in, ooh, what year was this? Let's see, Sage is 7. It might have been in 2021. Or maybe it was 2000. No, maybe it was 2019. Sage was born, but I don't remember how old she was. And I remember I still had I had my wireless breastfeeding things on, collecting milk at the table. So that lets me know that I was early in the journey. They made my cups look real full. But anyway,
Funny.
but yes. And so, like, basically what it was a gathering of people grounded in faith traditions who were like, we're not gonna surrender justice to like Christian nationalist white supremacist movement spaces. I mean, excuse me, religion. Like, we are going to believe that as people of faith, we have as much right to this concept of God, to a deity, whatever, as those people who take it and use it to hurt people do.
Yeah.
And it was such a lovely transformative experience. And I met this woman there, and she taught me an affirmation. Affirmations haven't really been in my practice that much until recently. It's not one of my foundational things. I'm more of a poetry girl, just sit and chronicle how I feel as opposed to do it that way. But it was, I believe it was, I am kind, I am loved, I am held.
Mm-hmm.
And she, like, so I took that and I brought it home to the children, and it was like the first time I taught them one. And so when things would go wrong, like, they would just be there, I'm kind,
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
loved, and they would just hold it. We'd be in the grocery store and Sage could hardly talk, and she had it, and me and my mom just thought it was the coolest thing. And it sounds, and like, there are these moments where as adults generally, and then as parents specifically, we can feel like we're offering our children something and we're not sure like what impact it actually
Yeah.
has on them, or if they're like really grasping what's happening. And that's not to say that for some people, certain practices and certain children, that's true, that they don't grasp it. but it's also been like really lovely to see that, again, that idea of our children start where we leave off. My baseline and my kids' baseline are so
Sure.
different. Like, I don't remember if I told you this, but one time we were in the car and I was doing the Black leadership training through oh, I told you
Rockwood,
about it recently.
Rockwood.
Yes,
Yes.
the Black leadership training through Rockwood. And so like the person who was leading the affirmation, they were saying just like, okay, we're taking this moment to ground into the space. I need you to know you're valued even if you're not in like workspaces, all this other kind of stuff. And Salem, he was like, oh, why do we have to listen to this on the way to school? It's so boring. And I was like, and he said, it's too calm. And I was like, Salem, don't you hear they're talking to us about like loving ourselves and being grounded and letting us know that we matter? He was like, I already know I matter. I don't need to I don't need to listen to somebody on a video to tell me. And I was kind of like I was torn. I was like, first off, don't come for me like that. I'll forget you, my kid. Second, it was like, okay, but also you started from a good baseline.
Yes. Yeah.
You've grown beyond this
Yeah.
journey, you know? And that was just like a really cool moment. But I think about it all the time that that piece of like, as you said, being a living ancestor. And I think there's almost like that. I don't want to use the word dichotomy, even though that's true. I'll use the word tension. There's this tension between, like you said, us understanding ancestors as something that has ended, and also like living meaning we're ongoing. And similar with, you know, free Black motherhood, it's like, okay, we we have reached this point that we transmit messages which people associate with being complete,
Right.
but we're not complete. We're
Right.
actually still developing, alchemizing, integrating, you know, like all of these things. And alongside that is saying like, wait a second, sometimes I'm gonna have to look back and be like, I had that completely messed
Yep.
up, and you have to witness me, be accountable,
Right.
and learn for that process.
Yeah. I mean, it's powerful work. And I think it also goes back to what I was saying about releasing control of the legacy and inheritance. I think it's, for my example, is one of those, and it sounds like yours was one of those times where we're giving what we needed, but it's actually not what they need.
Correct.
And yeah, which is the affirmations have evolved since then because Rhythm is her own person. And I hear the things that she loves about herself and that she wants to celebrate and that she wants to remind her of herself. And I'm like, oh, she got this. It's the treat. Here's the shade. Do what you want. I need it
Yeah.
freeholding enough in hopes that she won't actually need that. I hope that she doesn't. You know, like I actually hope she doesn't. And that she's free to develop whatever else comes to her heart and her mind. And yeah, I think that's been a hard, and also what you call it, a tension, maybe not a dichotomy, but like we're holding two things that feel like they don't go together, which is I am reparenting myself and trying to give myself what I need and maybe preview for her or prevent or create a barrier. But actually, what she needs might be very different. And that is because I'm doing my work. So she doesn't
Correct.
actually need the affirmation, or she might not need it. She doesn't need it now. She hasn't used it, but she might in the future. And that's okay. Because actually, what I'm doing is parenting myself. Not
Mhm.
actually telling her what she has and has to do, not telling her, you know, I'm a guide, I'm a facilitator. But
Yes.
yeah, I love the story that you shared. And you know, these kids, they have their own thing. I think that's another piece of living ancestors. Like, how do we see these folks as whole humans? And we have expectations and like it's supposed to look like this or feel like this or they're gonna do this. And they have they're told it's like their inheritance is something totally different. Just
Their
yeah.
inheritance is something totally
Yeah.
different. And I think about, you know, you've talked about and brought it up a little bit here around like, you know, the stories that your parents have of them ending up together, you know, and like the stories my parents have of them, you know, like crossing paths and me existing and all these other kind of things. it's like two things just came to my mind. Like one is with the intention that, like, just using you and I as specific people, right? Like forgetting the whole world altogether. The intention that we've used in crafting our lives, they really couldn't help but to start with a different
Sure.
inheritance.
Sure.
Because like witnessing those gaps and being reflective people, and again, I know it's not foolproof, but for us specifically, like the people we picked as partners, these
Sure.
traditions we're setting up in the home, the amount of peace that's expected, the way, like the rules of governance, just like all of these things, it's almost like we were trying to start at kind of like the basic level, and they were born with intermediate, if not expert, self-worth and love.
They on advance, Ambria. And
They on
that's the thing.
advance.
It's like we could go meta with it, which is, as a living ancestor, if as a kid part of the medicine and the gift that you developed is reacting to the traumas that you were faced that you were exposed to, that could, I mean, it could become detrimental, but it could be a gift later, right? So gift of listening and being an empath, all these things have some roots in the traumas that I experienced as a child. And so I'm like, oh damn, like what gifts are they gonna, I mean, I know I'm not getting it perfect. So I'm sure there's lots of gifts that are coming out of that. But even that framing, my child has taught me, like, the gifts don't always have to come through struggle. Like, my children are
Yeah.
developing gifts because they feel well loved and cared for and
Hmm.
fully seen as humans, and they I think they feel their dignity, autonomy, and agency. And there's another set of gifts
Hmm.
that stems from that. And so what role are they going to be, what box are they going to try to fit into, like what? And so I see that part too, where it's like, this all comes from somewhere. We're reacting to something we've developed in response to our environment. And over time, as we shift those elements, there's different things for people in the future to react to. So I think about,
Hmm.
what are my children experiencing in this home that I didn't? And what will they create as a result of experiencing this household?
And you know what else connects to that? Look, we're good for linking a set of thoughts together. Is I have found that the grandchildren connect with the grandparents in ways the children couldn't.
Ooh, say that. Okay.
And they go back.
Ooh.
They go back. They snatch them up, girl. They go back and snatch them up.
Ooh. Now that's another podcast, because there's multiple, right? So I'm reparenting myself as a parentified child. I'm also sometimes parenting my parents, which is not my business. I should not be doing that. But my parents also have, quote unquote, another chance to parent. They're reparenting themselves. They're parenting me. They're trying to grandparent my two children. And so, yeah, that, like, witnessing how they connect is also a site of healing for me. Because I'm like, hold on.
Yeah.
We didn't, I didn't get this. You saying yes, you did. No, I got a whooping. I got shooed away. Like, and so I've talked to my parents about that. Like, how are you seeing grandparenting different? And it's hard for them to say no. Like, and some of the patterns are showing up, the same patterns. So now there's tension between us because I see the way that they relate to my kids. So there's definitely triangulation, and the parenting of the parents and the reparenting and the grandparents trying to parent. It's a wild cycle. It's a wild
It
cycle.
is. It is. And like you said, that's a whole
That's a different one.
multi-layered,
That's another podcast.
it's a different it's a different podcast. It's episode, podcast, system, just everything. It's a different 10-year conversation. Um but yes, just kind of watching that journey. And I think, we've talked, and I know we've also had conversations around how, like, the relationship between a child and an aunt is different,
Mm.
and just how they kind of move through that stage. Or like with my brother, seeing him, in my mind, because he's 6 years younger than me. In my mind, he's like a kid, because like, there were elements of parentification that I experienced with him. And then, like, to see him, like, last Christmas, he got them so much stuff. And I'm not that big on Christmas. Like, you know, I've told you I'm not like anti the holiday, and also we're not traditionally religious, and also like I feel like your whole life is a gift compared to my life. So
Hey,
you got enough gifts, okay? Your birthday, one of y'all's birthdays in December, the other was in January. We doing too much. It's too much. Especially like you said, for stuff that's gonna end up in the trash
great
sometimes.
try.
Or Goodwill is more likely. But yeah, and just to like kind of see. And then I think it, like when I asked him, I was like, well, why'd you get them so much stuff? He was like, because we had this beautiful conversation. I was like, "Ooh, this is a long conversation. I'm trying to take a bath." But it was useful, because I was like, you know, it was weird for me, not weird, but surprising, because my uncles didn't buy the kids gifts. Like I used to joke all the time. I still say it. When I grow up, I want to be an uncle, because a lot of times uncles don't be
It's
doing that
often not
much, and they do the fun stuff. Like, you know, it's just some dads think
patriarchy.
they're uncles at this point.
That's a patriarchy.
Correct. It's very much that. And so like uncles growing up, I had 6 of them on my maternal side, and they brought their appetite. And now one of my other uncles, he'll bring like the entree bird or meat to the meal, and he supplies the space. But he's a little bit more oriented in the sisters than the other uncles are. But anyway, without getting into family dynamics, um so when my mom listens to this, she won't be side-eyeing me talking about us slash her family. But so I was talking to my brother, and I was like, first off, you got them a whole lot of stuff. I don't know that they needed all this stuff. Christmas, birthdays are around. And also, I was like, and it was surprising to me, because we don't have an experience of uncles being the ones to give gifts like this. And he was like, that's exactly why I did it. Because when we were growing up, like, I needed an older male figure more than
Yep,
anything, and like they just didn't feel present, they didn't feel invested. And if nothing else, I wanted, because you know he's uncling from another state, he was like, if nothing else, I want them to be able to remember me in these little moments where they had someone they could tell if they didn't want to tell mom or this or that. And it was just one of those many moments that, like, sometimes my heart literally explodes with my brother, because he I feel teary, it makes me mad. He's what I would dream he would have grew up to be. He's not perfect. He gets on my nerves, but like his compassion and his thoughtfulness and his understanding of systems, and I always tell him, that's because you had me as a model, and you turned out you turned out how you needed to be. But his heart is gold,
yeah,
and to hear him in that moment be like, I'm doing this different than the uncles
yep,
before us because it would have made a world of difference for
yep,
me, is just like, this is what we
yep,
need,
yep,
this is what we need. And I just think about how, like, I just think about how Salem, specifically, as like a little nerdy black boy, how for, like, Rico, and then for my brother, those things were sources of, like, even my best friend, those things were sources of bullying,
sure,
like for them to be the awkward nerdy black boy.
sure.
And to think that my son, that's his normal,
Yeah,
his
yep,
father, his uncle by, connection, like all of them, they're like very proudly into the STEM. Excuse me, into the STEM. I sound like a senior citizen talking about the Walmarts. They're very proudly into STEM. They are grounded in like their black nerdness and just like all of these other pieces. And I'm like, you don't have to move through the world wondering if this was a deficit.
sure, sure.
You start with the community,
Mm,
and I'm just so happy about the work that, like, you're calling out explicitly, but that so many people in our generation are doing implicitly. Like, we are doing that work, sometimes not as visible, because I think we're understanding, like, the generation before us, they didn't share enough, they didn't expose enough of the interior world, and so now we're just putting it all out there, for
mhm.
better or for worse.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a space for grace too, right? Like we don't have to valorize or villainize. And I know that's also really hard. I think that a lot of people, there's a lot of phrases around like, well, when you become a parent, then when you become a mother. I didn't necessarily
Yeah.
have that experience, but over time, my experience has been I have seen my parents as more human over time, for sure. Do I still feel like I want to hold them accountable? You know, all the things, sure. And to say, like, I look at their experience and what they were reacting to, and it makes a lot of sense. It still hurts. It's not right. It doesn't feel good, but it makes sense, you know? I also feel clear I'm not entitled for it to make sense, but I can put the pieces together to say, okay, you're a whole human who had flaws and desires and were trying to figure themselves out. Like, I recently was trying to write this article about love being a rehearsal for the world we want to see. And I was really struggling with what to write about how I grew up and how that impacted me and my worldview. And part of it was like, how do I describe this thing that has shifted? Like, my understanding of it has evolved over time. And maybe and as a child, I interpreted it one way. I see it very differently now. And I could say, I think I said something like, my parents were young. They were trying to figure themselves and each other out. That's not an experience that I had. Like, I don't know anybody in my family who had kids in their 30s. Nobody. I know very few people in my family that had kids in the context of a stable partnership. I don't know many people in my family like there. And again, I'm not saying these are like, oh, I was married. It's not a hierarchy of, or like a legitimizing of how I went about things. But I can,
Difference of
it's
experience.
an experience, and I can look at and see what parts of that are me and where I've departed from. But yeah, it gives a lot of context. Gives a lot of context. I'm like, oh damn, yeah, that's me.
Hmm.
That's me too.
Yep, very much. And kind of that piece you said around like the experience humanizing you, I know that being both a mother and a daughter at the same time has changed so much in my worldview and how I see the world, having being between those two generations and also watching my mom and my daughter
Yeah,
kind of create their relationship together. And like, kind of as you said, not, I've never really villainized my mom. She has made, there are things that I'd be like, "Who, I really wish you would have made different choices," but I expressed that to her herself, and she's usually like, "Yeah, I wish I would have made a different choice." And also, I was choosing from what I had, and your
sure,
circumstance is better.
sure.
And so I was like, "You know what? You're right." And then we just kind of talk about the
Yeah,
context around it, and we take those lessons and we move. That said, just kind of thinking about like our generation being the first one that's like really popularized like therapy,
sure,
dare I say sometimes even weaponized the
sure,
discussion of therapy.
sure.
um and I think about how like a lot of folks for us with that weaponization piece were like, and I'm gonna go to therapy for all the
Yeah,
things you did to me,
yep,
you know. Not understanding that one, therapy isn't actually around things that people did to you. It's around your interior world and how you, again, how you receive and experience those things that happened, how you respond, you know.
yeah,
But also, well, I mean, I guess therapy can be whatever you want it to be. I'll say that's what it was for, that's what it
yeah,
is for me.
yeah,
And having that and thinking about my kids, and I used to be like, what I used to say is my goal is to raise my children in a way that they don't need to seek therapy, and that's so silly. That's a very again, silly, impossible, a lot of things. That's, but I think that's the way a lot of people frame it. It's
yes,
like,
yes,
oh, well, let me raise my kids so they don't have to seek that external advice or understanding of themselves. And it's like, no, if you're a reflective human, you're going to need that process. That's
yeah,
not a sign you failed as a parent. That's a sign that your child is thoughtful and resourced enough to make sure that they're, exercising the agency and autonomy in their
yep.
lives. But
You spot on. You're spot on. I mean, yeah, there's so much. I'll try to pull two threads. One is about the trying to avoid therapy. Which I mean, it's funny now, but I read a lot of books. I was gonna do this and not do this, and most people's realities are different from the theory versus reality, right? And
Correct.
I'm like, a lot of time with my kids is spent on repair. The rupture is going to happen. We have conflict, tension, mistakes, fuck ups, bad days, bad moods. That's the thing that's inevitable. What's not is the repair. What's not is the humaning that happens afterwards. So I try to, and again, it's a struggle, invest as much time as I can in the humaning. The other piece you were talking about, oh, moms. I just want to name that for folks who don't have that kind of relationship with their mom, you are allowed to say, you know what, I wish you would have made a different choice. And your mom
Mm-hmm.
received that and said, yeah, me too. Cause I that's all I knew at the time. Everyone does not have that kind of relationship. And so if you
Got it.
don't, I feel like I'm a poster child for your healing can still happen. The reparenting can still happen even if the other person does not participate. I would love for people's parents to be like, yeah, tell me how I messed you up. Like I'm open to that. And maybe I will be open to that too. Maybe not. But I think I just want to, like, if you're listening and you're like, damn, I could never say that to my mom. Or when I've said that, she's fallen apart. I mean, I've seen and experienced a lot of reactions. Crying, defensiveness, deflecting, anger, projecting. There's still work for me to do around healing those pieces because they're actually not hers. They're mine.
Correct.
Those are my
Correct.
pieces. So I strive. I mean, I think it is. I love that for you, that you have that with your mom, and I wish that all for us, knowing that there's still work to do if just in case that's not the case.
I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I do believe a lot of folks will relate to what you're saying. And I also want to further like lean into and like one, hold space for those folks, and two, kind of validate what you just talked about around that rupture versus repair. Because my mom and I's relationship was not always like this. Our relationship got this way because there was a big ass rupture, a huge ass rupture, and it was like, okay, what are you gonna
Yep.
do? And doing that thing required taking all the shit down
Yeah.
and being really painfully and presently in that discomfort of and being like, hey, you made a decision that took some autonomy from me, and neither of us know if that's going to hurt me
Sure.
forever. And that was like that moment of like very clear vulnerability
Yeah.
where like, and like across the years it was like, well damn, you were here to witness the most painful thing I could have ever gone through. It's up from here,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I do understand and acknowledge that for a lot of people, it would have gone the other way.
Sure.
It just would have been like, a permanent conflict, or I feel like there's maybe three main categories: the people who have a great relationship, the people who have an awful relationship, and the people who have a lot of things, but they don't actually feel comfortable saying them.
Yeah. Yep.
They're kind of floating in that in between and ether. And what I really want is for us to do what you just did and have this conversation that there's not a one way that the relationship looks with our parents and our mothers. Especially, we know that conversation between mother and daughter is so weighty. And also like, let's see what we can learn from all the
Sure.
positions.
Yeah.
Like knowing when to shut it off when you need to shut off, that's
Right.
wisdom. Let's know where we need to go with that. Knowing when it's worth investing and whether or not this person is safe for you to interact with and rebuilding, that's worth
Yep.
knowing. Knowing when you're like, you know what, we gonna be cool but we'll never be close. All of these different things. And I just feel like, I know like folks are having that conversation, but I almost feel like we need to have like a live talk where it's just like, everybody, let's just have some mama conversations, because it seems like no matter how many times it happens, it still happens. But that piece you said around inheritance is, the more I talk to my mom, I think some of that is because my mother's mother is gone, and my mother and her mother had a lot of important conversations, and she was the daughter, she said, in the family who was like, everyone else knows my mother as a mother, I want to know her as a person.
Yeah.
And so when her mother was gone, I think she was, again, that living ancestor piece. She was prepped and primed to be like, okay, I'm going to let you into my interior world because my mom is gone. And also, that's what I always dreamed of from her.
Yeah.
So, again, that's, you ask someone down another branch of our family tree, the story's
Sure.
different.
Sure. Perspective.
The
Yes.
story is different. So, whew, the work,
The
the
work.
living, the ancestry,
The
and the
work.
work.
The work. It is deep work. It's tiring work. It's labor. It's labor.
I like it fancy like that, though.
Labor. And it's also really
It's much
rewarding.
fancier like
It's really revealing. It can really heal. And I've seen that up close.
that. Yeah. Look, before I start sending us down on another track of things, I want to know, is there anything you'd like to share or like talk about that we didn't get to talk about, or things you want to pick up on when we inevitably have another chat, or just where are you?
Yeah, there's so many. I started to write them down and then I was like, I just want to listen and be present. I think the grandparents piece is really juicy. And we could spend a very long time on that. I also think that the like mapping of where you are in your lineage feels really important. So, I'm gonna butcher the name of you know how Black people be just calling stuff, and it's not how we do with song titles.
Right.
Dr. Mario Buque has a book which I'm looking for. It's something like Breakthrough. It's about breaking through. It's about ancestral work and lineage. I'm not gonna butcher the name, but in there she talks about creating a family tree. And traditionally, you're like, this person was with this person, they had these three kids, and then this kid. That's what a traditional family tree looks like. But she talks about how we map like our traumas and like major events. That is something that I encourage folks to do. If you want to look at who and where you come from, if you want to look at your inheritance, find the stories of folks who came before you and get clear about what stories you want people to be able to call back to, because that's the kind of ancestor that you will be for folks in the future. So that's one piece. She talks about this kind of work being really important because we have an intergenerational nervous system. And I really feel that, like, sometimes stuff will happen. I'm like, it's happening to me, but it's not mine. I'm like, is it my grandma? Is it my mama? Like, we are connected in very many ways. So I think that feels important, is to doing some mapping. And again, the blood, it doesn't have to be blood relatives. Audre Lorde is one of my ancestors. We might be cousins. Maybe, who knows? We might be cousins. And then I think the last piece, I mean, there's lots. There's so much. I think we didn't talk as much about dreaming ourselves into the future. That's the second sacred responsibility. So we can pick up on that later. But I think there's a piece around how do we reconnect to our humanity, our dreaming space, our imagination space. And you talked about it as the interiority space. Um, and I think that's a key part of it too, is like, how do we tap back into that? How do we experiment like our lives depended on it? And how do we archive, document, track some of those things? And we talked a little bit about archiving, but this is my 39th year of life. And I'm like, I don't have a lot of pictures. Like, am I avoiding pictures? Do I not want to take pictures? I've just been more conscious of like, I was here. I was here. Let's document that. And that is something that people in the future look to. They can look at, they can see. So how are you also experimenting and tracking and documenting and archiving your existence feels really, really important.
Hmm. I'm trying not to like rev it back up and just settle in for a whole nother hour. I'm trying.
We're winding
I'm
down.
trying so hard
Part two. We'll
because
do a
that
part
dream,
two. We're going to start part two.
we will, but I'm excited now. I'm excited now. Stephanie, thank you so much. Like, this is gonna sound cheesy. Not only for like being my friend because I'm kind of weird. Like I reach out to people and like the way we met is I was like, "Hey, is that Dallas on your background?" And then just like, I'm gonna insert myself into your text messages. Let's have a conversation. And just like you've always been warm, and it was like there was never anything weird about you. Just don't label people as weird. You're excellent at giving people the space to be their real full selves. And that's, I don't know how often you've heard that. I would imagine a lot, or hopefully a lot, because you support people in so many ways. Like your whole, like all those things you mapped out is like support, kinship, connection. But that's just a real, like an excellent gift of yours. It's like you really get to be who you are, and you just get to like be here. You don't have to like shift, you don't have to do things different. So I want to give you your flowers about being that human that allows people to be human, as well as being just such a lovely and thoughtful intellectual light in this world. I am honored to just know you and to continue to have adventures and connections, and thank you for being a guest on here for the first but definitely not the last time.
Thank you so much. I receive all of that. And people have not said I give them space to be weird, but they have said there's space for me here. And I think that might be coded, you know? That brings me back to, I know we're winding down. It's everything full circle. It brings me back to the affirmation again, that this, when I practice being free, whole, and enough, there's space for other people to do that too. It's an
Yep.
invitation, it's a call. And so, yeah. Yep. More to come. More
Well,
to come.
more to come. Really quickly, let us know the different places that you want people to find you. And if there are any resources from what we discussed, text or email them my way.
Will do. You can find me on Instagram at Cultivated Sense, like cultivate a garden, but with the D, Cultivated Sense, Sense. Find me on Patreon, and on Substack at A Living Ancestor. So Substack, I have a monthly plus. I would say monthly-ish, but monthly-ish is like I don't do it monthly. It's monthly or more, sometimes bi-weekly writings on there. And Patreon is some like behind the scenes stuff of me writing. I write about what it means to be a living ancestor. I would love to publish a book. Agents come find me, editors come find me, book deal come find me. uh, and I also do
All
collections,
of
special collections on there. I have a love series on there that's just me like talking my shit about being a former matchmaker, and love being a rehearsal for the world we want to see. I have a couple offerings coming up. You'll see that on there, and I'll text you any other resources. You obviously have the podcast, Take Nothing When I Die. There's 2 seasons of that, but I'll send a couple more things your way. Thank you for the excellent
it.
questions. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. All right. Look, I'll chat with you
All right.
soon.